No other animal has influenced our lives as much as the horse. Our entire history is indivisibly linked to this animal. This documentary portrays a relationship that goes far beyond what we imagine. Although the use of horses has fallen drastically since the start of the Industrial Revolution, our hearts still beat as one. When we look through their eyes, we see ourselves. When we think of freedom, of harmony, of beauty, of nobility, of strength, of speed, we think of horses as a reference point. These silhouettes of horses were made more than 20,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers. It is believed that at that moment in the history of mankind, humans hadn't yet begun to raise livestock nor to domesticate animals. But these engravings undoubtedly show that they venerated horses. We're in Tarifa, in the southernmost part of Europe. This cave, which is difficult to reach, has an impressive view of the Strait of Gibraltar. This place represents the origin of the close relationship between the two species that have changed our history. Very few wild horses are left in the world. In the heart of Spain's Doñana National Park, there is a very special breed of wild horse, the retuertas horse. These animals have evolved in this natural setting over hundreds of years with no artificial selection of any kind. And so they are very different from today's riding horses and workhorses. They display natural behavior and are integrated in their habitat, sharing the meadows with the rest of the herbivores, just like their ancestors in the cave at Tarifa. The beauty of horses, their strength, and especially their speed, have always fascinated us. Whoever made these engravings may have dreamed of flying on the back of one of these marvelous animals one day. Very near here, on the very edge of Doñana National Park, we can watch this dream become a reality. It's one of the most striking equestrian events in the world, the Sanl&uacute races. On the days prior to this race, the equine athletes get used to this unusual racetrack. The trainer Manuel Alvarez has been preparing horses for these races for more than 30 years. He's very knowledgeable about how to take advantage of all the benefits of training on this beach. The anti-inflammatory effect of water, its decongestant action, and the effectiveness of the sea's resistance to strengthen the horses make this setting a unique place to train in. Running on the beach isn't easy. Manuel tells his jockeys that there's a line that will lead them to victory, that they must learn to read the sand in order to gallop along the fine line that marks the ideal hardness between the loose sand and the wet slush. Whoever gallops on that line will have an easier path to victory. Currents, tides, the solidity and composition of the soil along the shore, the ancestral wisdom of the sailors at the mouth of the Guadalquivir River blend with the trainer's know-how to reach the peak of success in this singular test of speed. These horse races, which have been held since 1875, are the oldest in Spain. Horses are brought here by Europe's best breeders. In this unique setting, the golden frame of nature highlights a dream come true: to fly on the back of the most beautiful animal of all. Thoroughbred racehorses are very different from all the other breeds. Genetic selection has led to the creation of the perfect machine for speed. They're also called English thoroughbreds because this breed was born in England. Palace House in Newmarket reveals the origin of this fantastic animal. This city, completely dedicated to horses, is home to the stud book of this breed that stretches back to the 18th century. Not far from here, the trainers Martin and Belinda Cayley are preparing thoroughbred horses for top competition. Each day, they carry out a series of galloping exercises on this slightly inclined track. These horses can reach speeds of 70 kilometers per hour.
Two green hats.
Who's that? The girl in there, is that?
I like that.
Mr. Mafia has won his last 4 races, and he has finished among the top 3 in fully half of the races that he's run. The speed of horses has allowed mankind to conquer the world. Throughout more than 5,000 years of history, our lives have been very closely linked to this animal. Transportation, travel, wars have been powered by horses. And until relatively recently, there was no more efficient way to get from one place to another. This alliance between horses and humans has been the most dependable and lasting in our history. But the Industrial Revolution has relegated horses to the point that some historians call this the post-horse era. At first, motor vehicles existed side by side with horses, but they soon pushed the animals into the background forever. During all this time, humans have selected and strengthened the best qualities in horses. Today, the world's horse population has dropped drastically, and likewise the number of people who live in contact with them. But these qualities haven't been forgotten entirely. In the Netherlands, the Chardon family has been training draft horses for 4 generations. Here, power and strength are essential. These horses are Friesians, a breed native to the Netherlands and specially bred for harness racing. In this sport, strength isn't the only important thing. Agility and a tight relationship with the jockey allow the horse to dodge obstacles at high speed. Isbran Chardon has just won the World Championship. With his voice and the precise and gentle orders he gives with his hands, he gets the animals to complete the exercises impeccably. His children, Bram and Lian, also train harness horses. The lives of the whole family are dedicated to horses. Near the Chardons, on the border with Germany, Meryl Blom has also dedicated her life to equestrian sports. In 2014, she won the bronze medal in the World Eventing Championship, one of the disciplines that demands the greatest number of athletic qualities from the horse. Seda, a Holsteiner horse, is physically impressive, stands almost 2 meters high, and is beginning her training yet another day. In competition, horse and rider have to compete in a dressage event, in which a jury scores the perfection of each one of the exercises and movements. The next test is show jumping, where the horse must display its power and coordination. The final phase is a cross-country race over obstacles. Polo is probably the most demanding equestrian sport. And without a doubt, the place where this sport reaches its maximum splendor is Argentina. These polo horses descend from the criollo horse, a breed that emerged from the horses that were brought from Spain to the Americas in the 16th century. A group of 5 mares and 2 stallions escaped from the Spaniards and had to face a new habitat with dangers that they had never seen before. Not only did they survive, but they produced an enormous wild population that the Native Americans came into contact with. These native inhabitants had never seen such an animal before, and they considered it to be mythological, almost divine. And so began a relationship with them based on respect and admiration. At this enormous ranch, the world champion polo player Adolfo Cambiaso raises and trains his horses. Today, the tremendous demands of this sport have led to breeding horses with a high percentage of thoroughbred in their genes. In order for these very valuable athletes to become champions, every detail must be looked after. And without a doubt, the moment the horses begin their training is critical. Their spirited nature and their fear of human beings mean that they run a very high risk of injuring themselves when they begin to train. Polka is a 3-year-old filly and granddaughter of one of the greatest polo horses in history. Today, she begins her training, and this complicated and delicate task has been entrusted to the horse tamer Oscar Scarpati. His son Cristobal starts to work with the animal to place a halter on her head. At no time does he use force, nor any kind of violence. Just as the indigenous Americans didn't subjugate this animal that they considered sacred, the Scarpati family helps this filly to learn what she needs to know to begin her career as an athlete. Now it's Oscar's turn. Not only does the blood of the Ranculche tribe run through his veins, but he also spent the first 20 years of his life with a native who passed along to him the ancestral methods of Indian training. In addition to his connections to an already extinct culture, Oscar also possesses great sensitivity and an acute talent for observing equine behavior, which have allowed him to develop an almost preternatural ability to communicate with horses. Each movement is carefully measured and studied. It's a game. This dance establishes communication between the human animal and the horse animal. The code is literally based on the one that wild horses use among themselves. The result is spectacular, and the filly quickly shows interest in her conversational partner. At no time is she subjugated. This completely free animal neither runs from nor attacks Oscar. There is communication and learning between the two that very soon yields surprising results. It's not an established protocol, but rather an exchange of messages that the tamer interprets wisely. With amazing agility and the aid of his bare feet, he gradually calms the animal's fears and the nervousness called ticklishness in Spanish. The filly is now ready for his son Paine to finish the job on this first day of work, placing the saddle on her back with great sensitivity and riding the animal before returning her to the herd, which gallops once again on the enormous Bamba. Here ends the teamwork of the Scarpati tribe. Polka is now ready to begin the next stage of her training, in which she will practice countless exercises until she's prepared to compete with the best. But this complicated sport wasn't born in Argentina. It was Genghis Khan, on the steppes of Central Asia, who invented it to keep the warriors and his cavalry busy between one military campaign and another. He designed the sport to keep his powerful armies trained and in shape. In Mongolia, a horse is much more than an animal used to wage war or play sports. This traditionally nomadic people's culture is inextricably linked to the horse, which is every bit a national symbol. Traditionally, each family owns a herd and milks the mares while they have foals. They bring out the little ones one by one, which quickly join their mothers. The leftover milk is drawn skillfully. The owner imitates the sound that the foal makes when it's suckling in order to stimulate the mare, as she may stop releasing the milk if she's not relaxed. This fresh milk is soon turned into Mongolia's most famous beverage, el urd, which is made entirely of fermented mare's milk. To make it, all they have to do is briskly whip the just drawn milk and wait. Mongolian horses are extremely tough, as they are able to withstand extreme temperatures and to gallop for hours over stony terrain. The immense and apparently inhospitable Mongolian steppes are nonetheless home to great biodiversity that thrives beside the ever-present horses. Near the border with Kazakhstan, Umerbek's family makes its living from its livestock in the traditional way. His father, Elik, is one of Mongolia's most famous falconers. And although Umerbek has studied education in Kazakhstan to become a teacher, he has returned home to continue learning all the secrets that his father can teach him about this ancestral art. Every morning, they collect the herd to milk the nursing mares. Every year, a festival is held in Ulgi that brings together a large number of Mongolia's falconers. Elik has won the competition several times, but this year, for the first time, his son will take the eagle to participate in the contest. Kana, a golden eagle, lives like one more member of the family. Almost 7 years old now, she was captured when she was young, as is the custom among Mongolian falconers. Every day, she exercises and flies to Umerbek's fist. In the competition, she'll have to do this in a crowd of people, which is a very difficult challenge for these eagles accustomed to working alone. The festival also includes a horse riding competition, and Umerbek, who rides extremely well ever since he was a child, practices at home picking up off the ground a kerchief with coins, one of the most famous events in the festival at Ulgi. It's amazing how he defies gravity and gets back into the saddle when it seems impossible not to fall off the horse. The time has come to prepare for the trip to Ulgi. Kana makes a few final flights to Umerbek's fist before leaving. Elik prepares the traditional handmade saddle for his son to use at the competition and gives him a last few pieces of advice. He's worried about this year's high temperatures. Eagles don't fly well if it's not cold. The falconers arrive bright and early at the place where the Eagle Festival will be held. They register, and wearing traditional dress, they walk proudly among the onlookers, showing off their enormous eagles. In order to ride on horseback for hours with such a heavy animal on their arm, they use a support that is anchored in the saddle and has a fork where they can rest their eagle-carrying arm. Watching these fantastic riders gallop at top speed with the eagle on their arm is a breathtaking show. The falconry event begins. The assistants climb the mountain with the eagles, while the riders wait below, where they must beckon to their eagles to show their loyalty and training. The temperature is unusually high for the month of October, and most of the eagles don't fly down to their owner's fist. It's Umerbek's turn. Kana is slow to take flight. She flies back, looking for a perch. Today wasn't a lucky day. It was too hot, and the large number of people below didn't help to convince the eagle to fly down to Umerbek's fist. Only a few of the more than 100 eagles participating have settled on their owner's fist. Now it's time for the event that tests the rider's skills. They all warm up and practice before their turn comes up. The rider's prowess is impressive, and the competition is fierce. Umerbek gives it everything he's got. It's unbelievable that he can get back into the saddle after having swooped down to grab the kerchief, his head just centimeters from the ground at a full gallop. And he pulls it off. He wins the competition and poses proudly with his medal next to his cousins and friends. It's time to return home with his eagle and his trophy. Mongolian falconers capture young eagles and keep them in captivity for a limited time. When they reach the age of 7, the moment has come to set them free again. Elik removes the leather straps called jesses from her legs and replaces them with a white kerchief, a symbol that anyone who might see her would recognize and that guarantees they will respect her freedom. There are other falconers who hunt on horseback since time immemorial, in this case with speedy falcons. We're in the Arabian desert, where we also find the origins of a legendary horse, the breeder par excellence among all others, an elegant and hardy animal, the Arabian horse. The desert is the most demanding place to hold a race. In Arabia, camel races are particularly famous, a sport which nowadays is practiced without riders. These animals are perfectly adapted to the desert. Their bodies and their metabolism have evolved to live in this dry, hot habitat. Horses, on the other hand, have evolved in temperate regions, although they're able to adapt to all kinds of habitats. Arabian horses have been bred over the centuries to be able to work in this setting. And although they may look similar to other horses, they display some qualities that allow them to carry out incredible feats in this desert. In Dubai, we're going to witness an equestrian sport at the opposite end of their typical athletic qualities: extreme endurance. This is the M7 stable, owned by the Sheikh of Dubai, Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum. The trainer Mohammed and the head veterinarian Mariano Salinas are following these desert athletes in a set of training exercises. They observe every detail to select the best horses to form their endurance riding team for the next race. they'll have to gallop through 120 kilometers of desert, and the goal is to win. The care and training of these horses is as extreme as the demands of the race they are going to endure. The day has arrived. The previous afternoon, they'll have to pass a veterinary check while the team makes sure every detail is perfect. The event begins at night to take advantage of the milder temperatures. More than 100 horses start the race. The Sheik's two nephews are riding with numbers 16 and 17. Both are expert endurance riders with numerous victories to their credit all over the world. During the race, the team is extremely tense. All along the route, there are frequent aid stations where they can refresh the horses. The 120 kilometers are divided into 4 stages. And when the horses reach the end of each stage, they must recover to a heart rate under 64 beats per minute before they can cross the finish line and begin their 20 minutes of rest. But these athletes recover in seconds and pass the veterinary check, where the personnel make sure that all their vital signs are good before allowing them to continue racing. A trotting check confirms that they haven't got the slightest limp. Now the horses move on to the resting area. Here they are treated to exquisite care. While they eat and drink, their legs are toned up with ice water. They receive massages, and they even enjoy huge portable air conditioning units that lower their body temperature and help them to recover. And then the next stage begins, once again at a gallop of 30 kilometers per hour. And more aid stations and riders who refresh their horses continuously as they gallop across the desert. The race finish is impressive. A sprint over more than 3 kilometers at the end of a 120-kilometer race. And the horses look like they're on a racetrack. Sheikh Rashid Al Mulk comes in first, wearing number 17. But they still haven't won the race yet. The horse has to lower its heart rate to 64 beats per minute in no more than 20 minutes. And the veterinarian jury must confirm that the animal is in perfect shape before declaring it the winner. Everything has come out perfectly. Another victory for the M7 stable. These horses have acquired their endurance in the desert. And Chris Pollitt traveled to another desert in a different corner of the world to study the toughest wild horses. This professor from the University of Queensland in Australia is considered the world's greatest specialist in laminitis, an inflammation within horses' hooves that is dreaded throughout the equestrian sports world. In order to locate the herds, he has collared some of the mares with radio transmitters. Known locally as Brumbies, these wild horses live in Central Australia and are the feral descendants of horses brought by settlers. After serving in wars and working as draft horses, they escaped or were abandoned to their fate. Dingoes are the only predators that could attack one of their foals, but these Australian wild dogs haven't got a chance at breaking the safety of the herd. And so wild horses have proliferated in Australia. And curiously, they don't suffer the problem of laminitis. So Chris came here to study their limbs and try to figure out what special feature has freed these horses from that condition. When he first saw these horses, he not only confirmed that their adaptation to the habitat was what made them so hardy, he also fell in love with the behavior of these beautiful animals living in complete freedom. And so he committed himself to trying to make their presence in this environment sustainable. Brumbies represent a significant environmental problem in this almost totally unpopulated region of Australia. Hardly anyone lives here. The Aborigines have migrated to the cities, and the horses breed with no control whatsoever. They feed on autochthonous plants, which are now disappearing due to overgrazing. And some native animal species are disappearing along with them, like kangaroos, which can't find enough food. Even the horses themselves starve to death when their population grows so large that they deplete their own food supply. Professor Chris Pollitt is developing a project which he hopes will provide a solution to this problem in at least some locations. The first thing is to control the horse's birth rate. And to that end, he's using an innovative technique that consists of introducing some magnets in the mare's uterus, which causes a hormonal change that prevents her from going into heat. To insert the magnets, he first has to shoot the mare with a tranquilizer dart. These images may remind us of the work veterinarians do with the big African mammals. And the risks that Professor Pollitt assumes are no lower when he dares to insert the implants in the animal's uterus, as it fiercely maintains its footing by leaning on some underbrush to keep from falling to the ground under the drug's effects. Once the magnets are in place, an antidote revives the mare in an instant, and she quickly joins her foal again. The professor combines this birth control program with an interesting ecotourism project, because just watching the behavior of these animals in the wild is an unforgettable experience. He has shown that there is a real demand to witness this show from people interested in spending a few days with these horses. His project includes a program for young Aborigines to tame these animals, as working with the Brumbies allows them to re-establish contact with the natural world and find a solution to the problems they have faced in adapting to modern culture in their country. Elsewhere, Other horses that have gone wild and now form feral herds are the Mustangs of the United States, which descend from horses brought to the Americas from Spain. Horses have always helped people. And if there's an iconic place on the planet that symbolizes the relationship between humans and horses, it's the American Far West. The culture here revolves around the horse. The famous cowboys made popular by American films still use this animal today to move their cattle. Nowadays, they have modern trailer trucks to ship the livestock and even helicopters to locate them. But horses are still indispensable for certain kinds of work. Russell Freeman owns the animals, and Jason Little works for him. Together, they're leading the cattle to this canyon with the help of their horses. Today's job is to vaccinate the calves. And once more, this landscape witnesses the age-old alliance between humans and horses. But the job of cowboy didn't originate in the USA, but rather it was brought here from Spain, where there are still real cowboys who keep leading their cattle on horseback every day. Rafael is 86 years old and works with Inés Garcia on the Román Pérez de Córdoba estate in southern Spain. Today is the day that they have to remove the bull that's been covering the cows during the spring. These lovely animals belong to an autochthonous Spanish breed called the Cardena Andaluza. They're perfectly adapted to this ecosystem, so they require a lot fewer resources, consume less water, and are much more hardy than the breeds brought from Northern Europe. Today, they're in danger of extinction because they're less profitable and because wild boars can transmit tuberculosis to them. But they represent a genetic heritage that could turn extensive cattle farming into a sustainable activity, the foundation to preserve the characteristic open oak groves in Spain called dehesas that hold such a wealth of biodiversity. With their efforts, Inés and Rafael are keeping this breed alive, of which only a scant few remain. They're heirs to a way of working the land on horseback whose roots sink many centuries into the past. They're living witnesses to an era when the passage of time was measured by the rhythm of a horse's hooves. The bull Hispano IV will now spend the summer away from the cows, but together with another stud bull of a foreign breed that's on the estate. The initial reaction of the two bulls is to confront each other in a fight that symbolizes the struggle of the less productive but more sustainable indigenous breed to survive. Work on horseback is disappearing around the world, and with it, a sustainable way to interact with nature. Inés's mount is a pure Spanish horse. Very near here, in the historical center of the city of Córdoba, stands an emblematic stable in the history of horses, the royal stables of the Catholic monarchs. In this impressive fortress, located next to the Mosque of Córdoba, we find the cradle of the pure Spanish horse, one of the most symbolic horses in the world, the origin of the horses that reached the Americas in the caravels. The human species has constantly migrated all over the world, and horses have reached every corner of the planet along with us. We've made a long journey together. The close relationship that we've had with them over the millennia has made us the two species that we are today. No other animal has influenced our history as much. This faithful companion continues by our side, fascinating us and offering us its beauty and noble character.